Hello and welcome to today's webinar on design process for high fashion, presented by our guest speaker, Mr. Georgy Sunny. Mr. Georgy has done his PG from National Institute of Design and has previously worked with designers like Manoviraj Khosla and Shamalan Bhumika. Currently, Georgie is working as an assistant professor at VFIT Chennai. So I would like to invite Mr. Georgie on screen. Hello,
Okay.
Georgie. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks, dude. Thanks for the opportunity. And so, should I proceed with the session?
Yeah, Georgie. I'm leaving the screen for you. Please start your presentation.
Okay. So, before starting the PPT, I'll just give some basic outline like what are we going to talk about. So, today we're going to actually discuss about the different design processes in the what is followed in the high fashion industry and how you can adopt that processes to your college projects. So basically, like if you are going to apply for an job or a internship in your any with any high fashion designers, what are the basic steps should be in your portfolio? That is what we are going to discuss today. And there are different steps which is involved in it. I'll just show you one of the student projects which we have worked on, and with that I think I can give you some idea about what are all the different steps involved in the process. Okay, let's go to the slide basically. So can you please share the slides? Okay. Yeah, so this is actually a project which I have done with some school called Kerala Institute of Design, which is in Kerala. So this is their graduation project. Like this is a project which they actually work on high fashion, and which is part of their portfolio which they show in the industry. So that is about this project. The student name is Anjali. Like her work, I'm going to present it today for you guys. Okay, let's move to the next slide, please. So, okay, before starting the project, I think there will be faculties and students watching the live session. So, this is just for the faculties and students. Just this is some idea. Like basically, we will actually do a time plan on like if your project is for 6 months, if your project is for 1 month. Based on that, you need to plan your timings. Like okay, when you're going to start your concept, when you're going to start your trend research, when are you going to start your inspiration board, when are you going to start your color boards, like that. You need to have a basic idea. You need to divide the time period which is available, which is something which is practiced in the industry also. So it is good to practice that in college. Like you can divide the time based on whatever time frame you basically have. So based on that you can divide, and then you can execute the time based on that, so you won't miss out any time, or you don't give any extra time for any unwanted areas. Like each session you can execute a time plan is a very important aspect when you start the project. Okay, next slide please. Okay, so the first process which is involved in the high fashion is like you need to come up with the trend forecasting. So trend forecasting is a driving force which helps you to create the entire collection. So the trend forecasting is a broader word. Like ready to wear have a very different set of trend forecasting. High fashion have a very different set of trend forecasting. In terms of high fashion, when we are talking, the trend forecasting is start with you need to identify what all things happening in different streams. For example, every stream is connected. For example, agriculture, technology, entertainment, all the different streams are connected each other. Like you can see some kind of trend emerging patterns in each the streams. Like for example, if you are seeing some new technology which is emerging, will have a direct or indirect influence with fashion, product and life cycle, which has a direct or indirect influence with the health sector. So every stream is interconnected. So the way we are going to identify the trend to start our collection is for high fashion, especially we are going to need to have an in-deep research about what's happening in science, what happening in art segment, what happening in agriculture, what happening in technology. All that thing as a student or a researcher, you need to have a very good knowledge based on every year. Like if you're going to work for if you're going to predict the trend for the next year, you need to have a very clear idea of what is happening in the current time. So based on that only the pattern is going to emerge, and based on that only you're going to predict the colors and the textures and the kind of silhouettes going to work for the coming season. So what the student is have done is like she have done in-depth research on technology, and she have spotted like, okay, now COVID is there. Because of that, so many changes are happening globally. She have identified what is happening exactly in science. Okay, please move to the slides. Next slide. So these are the researchers, like how she have actually interpreted the lifestyle pattern. People are more moving towards their house, doing like work from home kind of culture is emerging. That is one study. Next slide, please. Next, okay. You can see like in art and craft, what is actually happening. Like well, she is actually focusing on a client segment which is very Indian. So you can see like she's also studied what kind of changes happening in the art segment and in the craft segment. When you take India as a whole, this is like a massive heritage of textile and craft. So definitely when you do your trend research, you need to identify like, okay, what changes are happening in the craft segment, how the products are changing, how the craft is changing. Maybe the traditional technique will be remain, but the product they are manufacturing will be transforming in every season. So that you need to identify. Next, please. Next slide. Okay, you need to identify like what is the food patterns which is happening now. Because of everybody is in stay home, you can see like a lot of posters related to baking, and people are talking about traditional kind of cookings, and a lot of tweets and chats based on that's happening everywhere. You can see in your Instagrams like what people are doing a lot of home cooking. So that is one kind of pattern you can see. Next slide. So when you come back to the environment, like you can see, because of lockdown, this drastic change happening in environment. The nature is itself healing, and you can see, you get to know from the news and other channels like Australia automatically get healed, and you can see the wildlife is coming back. A lot of things happening from the nature side, like nature is taking this opportunity to like regenerate completely. So that is one thing basically happening with the environment. So that has these are different ideas which I was telling you. This has directly or indirectly going to influence all the streams. That's what I'm again emphasizing. Next slide, please. Okay, if you see about the next slide. Yeah, this is also more talking about work from home, that kind of culture. And if you see the entertainment industry, like it's really many of the industries are facing really crisis at this time. But if you see the entertainment industry and gaming industry, they have huge profits. And like the game industry is like emerging like anything, because people are spending more time at their home and they're having a lot of free time. So people are more into games. And you can see another pattern of like old serials and movies are coming back, which if you open your channels, you can see like old serials are coming back. So that is definitely going to have an influence of the buying behavior of the people in the coming times. Next slide. Okay, so based on the entire research what she have done, based on the different, these are some of the gist of it I'm showing you. Actually, we have she have done an entire plotting of the entire map, and then she have connected, okay, how this pattern is connected with the other stream, how this pattern is connected with technology, how this pattern is happening in agriculture. That way she's connected it. After the entire connection, she have derived some keywords, and based on the keywords, she have come up with five concepts. Five different concepts she have come up with, and in that five different concept, this concept are the driving force. Like from this concept only, you're going to derive your colors, you're going to derive your shapes. So you're going to derive your textures and all that. So she have developed five different concept. Means it can be a storyline or it can be any inspiration kind of thing. So from the concept, she have started working on her because we as designers, we need actual stuff like we need to develop product. From the story, we need to start narrating and creating products. So she developed 5 concepts and she started working. So this is sorry, this come back. Yeah, up actually. Can you come down? Next slide. Okay, next slide. So she's actually briefly explaining like what is each concept going to be. Next slide. Next. 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 Okay, so the basic 5 concepts she have converted into different boards to explain her concept. That is what I was basically telling about, like healing by the nature themselves, or some pattern of like if they are actually isolated in a different place, but still everybody is connected. Online education, all that has come a huge influence. So that's why she have taken different emerging patterns from that. The final concept she have taken from that 5 concepts which she is developed is like, one second. Tradition is the new normal. That is the final concept she have derived. That means, like I was telling you, the pattern of like people are thinking about traditional foods. They started experimenting more on the traditional food. A lot of old serials and movies started coming back to our daily life. From that emerging pattern, she have come up with a concept called tradition is the new normal. So that is her concept, and let's see like how she have derived the color, shapes, and textures from that. Can you please move to the next slide? Okay, so once you're very clear about your trend forecasting, and once you have come up with the concept from the trend forecasting, the next thing before designing the collection you need to do is like you need to have a very good idea like which segment or which market you're going to really focusing on. Are you going to work looking for an international market, or are you going to look for a Indian market, or you are looking for a European market? What segment you are basically looking for? Or then you need to identify which is the client group. Are you looking for menswear, women's wear? What particular age group you are looking for? All that details you should be very clear with. So based on your plan, like which segment you're going to be catering, based on that you can either make questionnaires and share it to the client group and get a lot of data through that, or you can directly go visit the stores and get the feedbacks from the selling people. So they will be having a lot of idea. People who is actually in the store have a lot of products were selling, what kind of cuts and colors will be selling. So those details will be very helpful for us to design. So that is, we can add some details to our collection, which will be definitely selling for the coming seasons. So this is very important. You will need to either do a survey, or you can either talk with the salespeople and connections. Nowadays, a lot selling, so you will get from your website. So based on that also you can come to a conclusion that okay, these things are my key observations which I'm going to connect with my collection when I develop my garments. Okay, next slide please. This is the same thing which I'm saying. You do your interior research either by talking to people or by questionnaires. Then you need to have an insight of what is your research. And after that, once you have a very good idea about okay, what kind of product segment you are going to thinking of, which is your who is you going to be buying your products, what kind of things were sold in the previous season. With all that idea, you can clearly identify like okay, this is the kind of client which I'm thinking about. For example, in this board, she is actually thinking about a client who is like part-time type, who like ethnicity, who like have traditional embroideries, who likes Indian fabrics. So that kind of a client she's thinking about. She's still modern, but have a flavor of Indian craft and textiles in her wardrobe. So that kind of client group she is actually portraying. So in the client board, you can in that visual language, you can clearly see that okay, she's talking about the color of textures and fabric, what she is actually imagining, what kind of scene the client is going to be wearing this particular pieces which she is going to develop. So that that idea is very well communicated in her client board. Okay, so the other things factors you need to be clear when you make your client code is like you need to have a very clear idea what is the age group, what is it, which geographical region they're coming from. That has a lot of influence. And what kind of character she is. Maybe you can put some attributes like fun, loving, party going, or like some sort of attributes if you can derive. That will really help you to come up with your collection in a more interesting way. And obviously gender, those things I have already talked. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Okay, so now she's very clear about her concept, her market segment, her client, who is your client. She's very clear about. Now she's again going back her forecast concepts. From the concept, how she is actually going to. Concept is like a story sort of thing. Like you are telling like, okay, this is going to be happen. So how are you going to convert your concept to an inspiration, basically? So what all things she can do in high fashion, there's no hard and fast rule like you go in this direction or this direction. It's very flexible, like based on your personal interpretations and your personal ideas, or whatever you have really inspired from, or how you're going to connect your concept with real life. That way you can directly take the inspiration. So she actually connected her idea was like the traditional. So she have actually taken the inspiration from the traditional folk dance forms. So in that also she gone very specifically. She have taken the traditional form of Kathakali. So the idea is like not to take inspiration from the current way of costumes or movements of the Kathakali. She have do an in-deep research about what is a traditional form, how the costumes were, what were the real materials they will be using, and what kind of techniques they will be using. All those ideas she have actually converted, and she have made the garments. Those techniques she have actually converted and create an amazing garment piece. The next slide you can see like, okay, how deep she have converted the how deep she have did her research and identified like the concept. 1 minute, I'll just hold on. The traditional form of Kathakali, what kind of materials they were using at that particular period, what kind of silhouettes were there, how the craft segment, craft were developed for the Kathakali costume, all that she have studied. So those as a base for her inspiration. So basically you need a kind of visual connection when you make your do your design process. So her images, inspirations she have collected from the photographs, and she have visited many museums and collected images based on that. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Can we move to the next slide? Okay. Oh, this is again the inspiration board. She is actually, can you go back to the previous one, please? Okay. In this, you can actually see like she is actually taken inspiration from the coloring technique, how the natural colors will be used for that, and even the script writing technique she have inspired. So there is no limitation. Like if you're taking a concept, you can go in deep and you can derive as many connections based on that. So I like to add, like if you have a constraint like how to actually connect things, you can actually do a brainstorming based on the concept you have taken. That might give you a lot of ideas based like how you can interconnect things. Okay, maybe you will be initially taking a smaller portion, and that will really open up. The brainstorming will really open out in a broader aspect. For example, I'll give you one example. Like if you're taking mushroom as an inspiration, you can really think about what kind of textures you can use for mushrooms, how the shape of the mushroom is. If you see the inside layering, how the layering is, what colors mushrooms have, where the mushrooms will grow, what is the life cycle of the mushroom. All that way you can actually connect it. So there's no hard and fast rule that I'm telling. Like in this case, in this particular project, if she can also inspire from other designers who have worked the elements of Kathakali, how they have interpreted it, she can have a look on that, and then she can interpret those ideas in her own way. So that is about inspiration. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, then coming to the color is the main tricky challenge. Okay, so you will do the from your trend focus, you have got your concept. From the concept, you have derived your inspirations boards. So based on the inspiration boards, you will be having, you have collected either materials, you have collected either images, you have collected either swatches or whatever. So based on the colors what you have it in your inspiration board, you can pick the colors. It is always wiser to pick colors based on dark colors, grays, pastels, and bright colors. So why I am suggest students to do this is like see, you should not miss any client. Like based on many clients will be having different kinds of interests. Some people will be very much interested in pastel colors, they'll be like dark colors. So this is like a backup for you. Like you have created all the set of colors which is you are predicting for the upcoming season, which you are kept aside. Then you need to, you're not going to use the entire color in your collection. Then you can pick the stronger colors from this, which you think that okay, this is really going to work for my collection. This also depending on how many number of pieces you're going to have it in your collection, or how where you're going to who is your customer, what is their like, because you have done your survey, you know, like what is going to be selling for the next season and what is your customer looking for. From those ideas also you need to think when you pick the final colors. Can I see the next slide, please? Okay, this is the final color board she have taken. So in this she have connected her concept. Like her concept is like traditional is a new normal. So she have directly derived the colors from the Kathakali costume, which is like very strong traditional colors. Like I was telling initially, now they started using synthetic material and all for coloring the face and all that. Earlier it is like they use only natural colors and all that. So she have taken inspiration from what was the original color tone. So those type of colors she have taken and she have matched the Pantone and she have derived the colors. Then what is the colors in the concept? Using that they have derived the colors. After that comes is the mood board. So what is the difference between mood board and inspiration board? Mood board is a board which actually trying to tell like, okay, this is a kind of feel I want to communicate in the my for example, I want to show like very powerful and gothic kind of feel. Well, how my board will look like. It will have a lot of stronger and sharper kinds of elements. We'll be having blacks, reds, and all that. Here, what she want to depict is like she is talking about a kind of feel a garment is going to be give like very fragile, very soft, very classic kind of beauty, but it has a very modern take from that. That is a kind of mood she want to create, like very kind of Indian and very kind of South Indian type of look she is actually looking for. That was her mood she is trying to create. Okay, after you have a very clear idea about okay, what is the kind of garments you are visualizing, what is the kind of ambience you are thinking about. Okay, after that you can start developing textures. Basically we need something like a fabric or an embroidery or a texture to develop the further collection. So based on your inspiration you can derive so many elements. Maybe you can start sketching small motifs and then you can start repeating it. That is one technique. Or if you're familiar with textures, you can start making, collect different materials and breeding techniques, and you can make some different textures. All those things, there's endless possibilities. Okay, this is some textures she have hand drawn and started exploring. Next, please. Okay, you can see like how she have derived whatever she have drawn from the rough sketches. She have actually how she have transformed that into a print. So when you develop a print, it is very important that you the same print base you can experiment in. Please wait. I'll tell how she can actually Please hold on. I will tell to change. Please hold on. Go back to the previous ones. Yeah, okay. So if you take a smaller element, it's interesting. Like, okay, this is a very good example how she have taken a smaller element. You can change the size, you can make it small, make it big, do the gradations. Then you can try the same print technique into different colors. So it's please make sure like when you make your color swatches for the print, you should always try to identify the colors before you can manufacture it. Next slide, please. Okay, then she have actually tried to combine two different motifs. With the same idea, she have taken a smaller one and a bigger one. With arranging that combination, she is trying to create another set of print. Next, please. Yeah, then you can see like as a if you're working on Indian or ethnic line, you should always interesting to make amazing borders and all that. So you can the same components which you have designed the smaller elements, you can combine it and create borders of different sizes. Basically, you can have a smaller 1 inch one, or you can have a really massive like 5 inch borders. Depending on what you're actually planning for, you can start exploring so many shapes. And my experience is like don't hesitate to like explore like really crazy like you can maybe some spontaneous like it's not like everything like you planned accordingly it's going to work. So in designs always interesting like you explore a lot. So based on some ideas, based on some rough sketches, some amazing ideas will be coming up. So keep exploring. Like this is a very beautiful example, like how she have taken a smaller element, she have varied in different sizes, start putting it together and see was the same sizes she have made it into line and rows. Amazing patterns are coming. Just changing the colors gives you n number of print directions from this. Next, please. Next, please. Okay. These are some more options of that. Next. Yeah, some more color variation how she have changed the same motif into different forms. Next. Yeah, you can also think about massive kind of prints. For example, you want to keep a very strong bold look on the shoulder or on the chest. It is that is also an interesting way, like instead of going completely like a repeat motif, you can also think about something which is a very bold statement. And this idea either you can convert it into print or you can convert it into an embroidery, or if you're too brilliant you can convert a print and on the top of that you can do an embroidery and do a highlight. That is also options. There is n number of options. Maybe you can create a texture completely doing the sprint and on the top you can develop a texture. So there's endless possibilities. So keep experimenting a lot. Next, please. These are the color options of that. Next. Yeah, and it's don't just stuck with only just two-dimensional medium or like a print or drawing and all. It's always interesting. You should collect things which is actually connected with your concept and start putting it together. That will give you a brilliant idea in terms of developing a new material or new texture altogether. This is a very interesting way of working when you are working with textiles or fashion. So collect a lot of different materials. Those materials will give you a lot of directions, like what the way you can actually create new textures and surfaces. Next, please. Yeah, this again, like she actually tried to stick it, but it is always interesting. Like you should in high fashion, sticking is very not a very cool way of going in the garment. You can actually make holes and embroider it and see. Like you can maybe other techniques you can see, like which will last longer. Okay, those that is also a very important aspect. Like you might have collected many materials and get an amazing combination, but it's very important like how you're really going to execute on the fabric. That is also a very key aspect. And always because you most of you guys are Indian audience, it's we have a huge textile and craft heritage. You can always go sit with the craft people and see what are the techniques they use, and then you as a young budding designers you can actually convert those techniques into some other concept. Maybe the same technique you put it on a different geometrical or some other shapes, that technique will completely look new. That is the beauty of the craft. Like you can take the techniques, apply your brain and come something really amazing from that. Okay. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, these are some of her explorations with collected materials. Next. Yeah, there's one more thing you can do is like she have actually feel like she was when we were working, she was asking me a question like, sir, I was interested in Kutch embroidery to incorporate. The justification she was telling me is like that gives her a feel of Kathakali in some way. That is her personal interpretation. In high fashion, that is completely okay. If you have a personal interpretation, like, okay, you feel that, okay, this is connected, but it is not, because Kutch embroidery is completely different, Kathakali is completely different. That doesn't have a direct contact, a direct connection, basically. But as a designer, she is feeling like, okay, while seeing that kind of embroidery gives me a feel of some Kathakali ornaments or some Kathakali influence in that. That is her personal interpretation. That is also okay when you're working on high fashion. That's when I'm telling there's no hard and fast rule. If you like to experiment that medium on this medium and create something new, perfectly okay. You can experiment really crazy in any way to develop something completely new. The idea of high fashion is like that is in the top of the pyramid. From high fashion only all the ready to wear, streetwear, everything is emerging. So if you're a high fashion designer, you should think like, okay, how I can completely bring new type of material in terms, new type of embroideries in terms, new type of silhouettes and textures, and it's completely okay to blend different concepts. And if you feel a personal connection, or if you can see a connection in terms of your concept and your thing, then it's always welcome to experiment in that direction. Next one. And she was also thinking about why can't we like um, do some cutting kind of thing, like and then depicting the same shape in a leather or some other material, or a metal piece. If you are cutting the same shapes and deriving, and then she can actually um, embroidered all these textures on one by one on the surface and create an amazing design. So there's no limitation like you need to think in terms of embroidery or print. You can even think about 3D printing or any advanced technologies which you are thinking that's going to be a new direction for any material. Never hesitate, start experimenting. And I just want to add something over here, like so you might be a fashion design student in a college, but your college will be having so many different streams, like maybe you're having automobile design, maybe you'll be having um, furniture design and jewelry design. So it's very interesting like how you can actually collaborate with some people and visit their labs. Maybe some amazing idea you will get. And never get hesitated to collaborate with other people. Like collaborations will give you amazing results, something which you are strong at, and will help them they are strong as you. So combining those ideas should be amazing results. So always collaborate with other disciplines and create amazing textures and shapes. You never know how you can sometimes collaborations will really give you like amazing ideas which you have never thought of previously. So try experimenting a lot when you're in the college itself with other disciplines. That will give you a lot of new ideas that will really help you when you go to the industry also too. If you are planning to start your own something, it can give you an amazing idea for the startup. Yeah, coming back to the her design process, she actually tried different textures also, not only like you can integrate fabric with any existing materials, and you can try a lot of permutation and combination type of forms to fit your concept. Next slide please. Next slide. Okay, this is the same texture she have tried layering and seeing like how what are possibilities are there. Next. Next. Okay, so this is rough sketches. Before getting into the no, previous slide, please. Okay, before getting into the rough sketches, I would like to tell a little more about the textures. You can check out. I actually have one more PPT, which was some technical, and unfortunately, I was not able to show that. That's why I'm just showing a student project and trying to not because of some technicality was not connected. That's why I'm going to explain by showing the student project alone. Maybe in some other sessions we can plan and execute that. So what I want to communicate is like textures you can actually see like how the other designers have interpreted. You can see a lot of ideas from John Galliano and McQueen. If you see John Galliano's work for Dior, you can see like very amazing textures he have developed. If you see one garment alone, like you can see like different portions of amazing kind of textures, which is actually connected with his concept. Maybe he might have taken an embroidery and worked different surface all together on the top of that, or he might have actually printed and then did some other surface technique on the top of that. So it's, as a design student, it is always interesting, like you can go to different designer collections and check their archives, like a lot of websites like Vogue Runway and all that, where you can see the detail of the pieces, which will really, I'm not telling you to like directly copy it or do it. Like if you see a lot of fabrics and textures, that will automatically create an amazing texture vocabulary in your brains. So when you work on something, maybe you can combine two or three different techniques and create an amazing technique, or what something which you have seen somewhere, you can with the help of some other craft technique, you can create something completely new. So there are a lot of possibilities in that way also. You can, how you can connect and come up with new materials. So coming back to her design process, see what she have done is like after she have developed the textures and everything, the next main process is like to come up with the silhouette or the basic rough sketches. What that is most exciting stage, I think. Maybe some little stones and different woven figures and see how the shapes are deriving. Or if you are there's no hard and fast rule. If you are very stuck with directly drawing, seeing your inspiration board, you can take geometrical shapes and see like, okay, what all shapes are coming, how I can actually modify this shape into an interesting garment. That is one step. Or if you are, you can directly start sketching on the croquis, seeing your inspiration board. That is also an interesting way, like maybe some amazing shape will come. And one thing I want to highlight for the faculty part is like you always give some input in for the students in terms of like maybe you can set some sort of time, like 1 minute, how much you can see your inspiration board and quickly draw. Maybe like for example, you ask the student to quickly draw one sketch, then second one, third, like that. You can plan that exercise in the class. That will really help student to come out all the ideas which is connected with the concept in his mind to the paper. So doing like very quickly, that spontaneousness will help him to create a fresh and amazing idea by his own. So from the 1 minute sketch, he can actually refine and come up with an amazing garment. Next slide, please. Next, these are all his rough works she was actually exploring. So once that exploration is done, she can actually refine the sketch. So at that time, she can think like, okay, what embroidery, where I want to give and all that. But 1 minute and quick sketches will really helps you to open up your mind and get amazing shapes like faster. These are her final shapes and the textures which she have applied. Next one, please. So total she have developed 9 garments. Next slide, please. Yeah, these are her rough sketches. Like so many sketches she have developed, and from that she is going to pick the best one. So best one in sense like you need to consider like what your customer is going to like. Then you need to give a lot of variety to the customer. Basically, you should have long dresses, short dresses. If you're working on ethnic line, there should be saris, there should be lehengas, there should be salwars and all that. There should be a wide variety of products which is existing in your um, like how many looks you are planning. In that, if you are planning 9 looks, in that all these options should be there for the customer. Oh yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, this is a refined look, like how the whole 9 looks together. So as I was telling you, there's a short dress, there's a long dress, there's a saris, the salwars, lehengas, and all that. There's a lot of different kind of products she is providing to the client with her range plan, and she is actually looking in more in terms of that kind of segment she's actually looking for. With the like I completely find the concept that she was telling about traditional but innovation. The next slide, please. These are the back images of the garment. It's very important as a design student. You should practice drawing the front and back same time. Otherwise, don't imagine like, oh, you only sketch the front and the back is left for the production people to make. That is not the case. You should always sketch the front and back simultaneously when you work on. Next slides, please. Next. Yeah, so we are living in a COVID times. So it's very important. It's like that, as I was telling you, that influence will be always there in all segment. Fashion is definitely changing because of that. The way we don't know how the fashion shows are going to become. We don't know like how the selling patterns is going to be. Everybody, all the luxury market, they're actually waiting and seeing how the market is growing and what are the upcoming changes are going to come. So the mask is one of the key element when you design. This is like a basic thing which you need to design whenever you're working on high fashion or ready to wear. It's interesting. Like you can think about in high fashion how interesting textures and shapes you can develop amazing kinds of masks in terms of design. Technical aspect is another thing that thus comes with technical and productivity. That is different. I'm looking only in terms of high fashion, where the more the shape and the textures and the colors are going to play more vital role. Next. Next. Okay. This is called tech pack. Okay, so basically whatever you have designed from that tailor or a production people will be very difficult to execute the garment. So you need to give a proper line diagram of the flat sketches of the garment. So the people who are going to construct it will have a very clear idea. Okay, designer is actually thinking about 2-inch collar or 3-inch collar, or the skirt is going to be this length. It has this much, this kind of seam lines going. This is the ways the drape is going. Those all measurements and the details, it's a must that the designer need to uh, put it. If you're just sketching and giving, you are still an artist. You are not converted into design. You should have very clear idea about what is the product you are thinking, how the measurements, how you are going to really execute it, what is the fabric, how the lining is going to be. Do you need a bonding or do you need a structuring kinds of thing, or how the drape will look like? All that things you need to really explain in your tech pack. Next slide. So she have developed 4 tech pack, like 4 looks. She have developed the tech pack. You can see like how the lehenga is uh, cut and how the shape is actually, and all the details she have attached. Next one. Next, this is actually the top. Another look. The pants. Okay. Next one. Yeah. Next one. These are some examples for you. Like okay. Next. 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 Yeah. That's all. I think. So she have developed a tech pack for the final 4 garments which she's going to construct in the coming days. So that's all. I hope you understand some of the basic process which you need to do in a high fashion project, like from starting with your concepts. Then you will be starting with your trend forecasting. From the trend forecasting, you are working with your deriving your concept. From the concept, how are you going to derive your color stories? How are you going to derive your inspirations? How are you going to, from the inspiration, how are you going to derive your silhouettes? And the silhouettes what you have derived, you're going to put your textures and surfaces which you have developed meanwhile, and those also going to apply it with the colors. Then your final range is ready. When you're selecting the range, the main important thing which you need to consider is like there should be a wide options for the customer. Like there should be like different kinds of pieces which will be bought by different kinds of clients. So that is the main thing which you need to see. And the actual process, like once your range plan is done, either it's go to the shops or either go for the fashion shows, or now it might be get shooted and put it in digital platform, and that is the whole journey of the process. So one thing you need to connect is like you might have done it mood board, which will really help you to create what kind of advertisement you are really going to do, or what kind of shoot you're going to do. So that kind of feel and emotions to communicate to the buyer through your photo shoots and the way you're going to project. Maybe you are doing a digital fashion show, you're going to do a digital shoot which you're going to put in your website. So those mood board will really help you to come up with all that. So now I think we can open up for any queries. I will try to answer your queries.
If anybody have any queries, please. I think Georgie, you explained it so well. Like it is so informative. So I think don't have nobody has any queries. You explained it so well. Like starting from
Maybe they don't understand anything, or they might understand everything.
no,
That
I
is
was
two options for this. If anybody don't have questions,
it was
okay.
really amazing. Like starting from research work, how to develop some textures, surface ornamentation. Nicely explained. Very informative.
Thank you.
Guys, anybody wants to ask anything? I like the concept that tradition is a new normal.
Sorry, you asking me some question?
No, no,
I
I
didn't
said
get
I
it.
like the concept. Like I like the concept. Traditional is new normal.
Yeah, that is one trend. One of the student have identified after her trend research, which is going to be emerging for the coming seasons.
Yeah. Nobody is asking anything. I think.
Okay, if there's no questions, we can wind up, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, Georgie. Thank you so much for this informative session. It was like very informative. Thank you for your time, and looking forward for some further lectures from your side.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Georgie.
Can I leave?